The ROG Ally X is just a computer at the end of the day. Sure, it might look like a Nintendo Switch at a nightclub, but the internals are running bog standard Windows, and when plugged into a docking station with some peripherals, you get a nice little computer. But is the Ally X just doomed to be a gaming device that is able to be used as a PC in a pinch? Or is it capable of replacing a full-fat desktop PC? I tested myself and had to replace my laptop and desktop for an entire month, and spoiler alert, it was kind of insane. But luckily I was able to bling out my Ally X from the sponsor of this video, JSOX. Are you looking to add some flair to your ROG Ally X? Check out the RGB backplate from JSOX. It's a visual spectacle with 6 stunning RGB modes. Imagine your device lighting up with rainbow gradient, rainbow wave, or the soothing breathing effects in red, green, blue, and purple. It's super easy to install, and it comes with all the tools necessary, and it only took me about 5 minutes. Made from premium transparent PC material, it looks as good as it feels. Plus, the custom black silicone handle doesn't just soften the glow, but also provides a comfy grip, making longer gaming sessions a breeze. But the best part is that the RGB lighting doesn't eat away at your Ally X's battery. The backplate comes with its own rechargeable battery, so you can enjoy up to 120 minutes of RGB magic on a quick 25-minute charge. Plus, it supports charging while in use with your charger, stand, or docking station. So if you're ready to upgrade your ROG Ally X, click the link in the video description and use my code JASON, that's JASON, for a special discount only available directly on the JSOX website. And thanks again to JSOX for sponsoring this video. Now let's get some ground rules out of the way. For 30 days straight, I can't use my laptop or desktop to the best of my ability. I'm allowing myself to use whatever accessories I can get my hands on to try to mimic the desktop experience, so a dock, mouse, keyboard, and a few other expansions that I'll go over later. I've seen a lot of comments from people that say that their Steam Deck or other handhelds have completely replaced their PC, and that is awesome. I think for a lot of people it would be a really easy transition, but I'm a bit of a power user. I use my desktop for gaming, video editing, streaming, writing scripts, making thumbnails, and a ton of other uses. I have a semi-complicated setup on my home PC that I try to emulate using the Ally X. Now the device luckily comes with 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, which are going to do a lot of heavy lifting in this challenge, utilizing all kinds of docks, hubs, and adapters to try to emulate even a fraction of the power of my desktop PC. The main dock I used was this one from Ugreen I had lying around, but any dock or hub would have worked just fine. I'm plugging it into my main monitor, this 39-inch ultrawide, with a native resolution of 3440 by 1440p, and this is where the first issue started to arise. Now, as great as the Ally X is when displayed on a 7-inch screen, it can't really perform that well above 1080p, and even 1080p is a stretch, literally, for some games. Using a monitor with this big of a resolution was kind of a mismatch, and while it worked just fine when browsing the web or chatting on Discord, any kind of gaming was not a great experience. Now, the games all ran well, which is within spec of the Z1 Extreme APU in the device, but when stretched to that big resolution on a 39-inch monitor, it just didn't look great. These days, I mostly play lighter games like the Finals and Teamfight Tactics, so it wasn't that big of a deal during the challenge, but Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming to PC in January, and if I had to play that game on this situation, I might be a little bummed. Now, I don't usually utilize these, but an external GPU via Thunderbolt works amazingly well in the Ally X. Harnessing the power of a GPU, you can get desktop level graphics on your Ally X, but that means you need to buy a graphics card, a power supply, and an external GPU system. So this could be very expensive if you are just a casual user, but plugging in a GPU really is the best way to play games on a handheld, unfortunately. I tested it just to see the performance, but I decided that it was a little bit too expensive to be considered as a peripheral in this challenge, so I scrapped it after the first day. I also utilized some cloud gaming via GeForce Now to play some single player games here and there, and that was actually a really great experience. I have the high resolution subscription, so it really filled out my screen, and honestly sometimes I forgot I was using cloud gaming or even a PC without a dedicated graphics card. This really held me over while playing single player games for sure. While gaming, I usually like to sit in Discord voice calls with friends, so I was able to simply plug my wireless headphones adapter into the hub and it just worked flawlessly. Having Discord running while gaming made a negligent difference on my gaming experience, so that was pretty cool. All right, let's talk networking. The Ally X does have a pretty good Wi-Fi 6E chip inside that, for any normal person, would be more than enough to handle all your needs. But I'm a dirty little rat who needs faster and more wired speeds. Most, if not all, docks will come included with a gigabit Ethernet port, which, again, for 99% of the public will suffice. But I actually use a 10 gigabit connection in my home network. My internet only maxes out at gigabit fiber, but I use 10 gig in my local network so I can video edit it directly off my NAS and have super fast access to any videos or files I need during editing. Luckily, there do exist adapters that can convert a Thunderbolt 4 port into a 10 gig Ethernet port, so I can just buy, it's like $200. Well, I guess I'm not using my 10 gig networking for a month. Luckily, I don't edit videos every single day, so I'll just have to deal with slight slowdowns during editing here and there. Speaking of production, editing a normal timeline of 4K footage in Premiere Pro was surprisingly not too bad. That APU in this machine can handle my basic timelines and had very little issues doing everything I needed to do within Adobe Premiere Pro. The only slowdowns I had was anytime I included an animation or transition. These generally rely on the graphics card, so they would give me some slowdowns and take a while to render properly. So for my channel, it's not that big a deal as I have really simple editing. But if I was a Mr. Beast editor or something, this setup would be out of the question. But the 2 videos I edited on it were just fine, and despite the slowdowns, I'd say I wouldn't mind doing it again in the future if I had to. It was very apparent when editing off my gigabit connection though. So here's what scrubbing looks like when I have the files on the SSD directly, and here's what it looks like when it's off the NAS. Kind of annoying, but not the end of the world. I record all my footage on SD cards, and using a cheap adapter I already had, I was able to dump all my footage and photos onto my device totally pain-free. SD cards usually only write at a max of like 100 MBs, so the Ally X had no problem keeping up with that. Now, a mainstay of this channel are hardware benchmarks in almost every video these days, it feels like, where I record gameplay footage in 4K 60 FPS and I showcase it during PC build videos. Normally, to remove any kind of bottleneck where the recording itself eats away at the performance of the machine, I use this PCIe 4K capture card from Elgato. But as you can see, this doesn't work on this guy. So I had to resort to this old capture card I had that plugs in via USB-C. This one's from EVGA, but there are tons of these that are all essentially the same. But mine only records in 1080p, and the ones that are able to do 4K 60 are really quite expensive. So I just had to record in 1080p this time and kind of deal with it. Luckily, the APU was able to keep up with the screen capturing and the footage came out pretty good. I've had some bad experiences when doing game records in the past using only QuickSync on an i5 Coffee Lake CPU, but the Z1 Extreme was able to handle 1080p recording no problem, but I'm not sure how good it would do at 4K. I do a lot of writing at my computer using Notion, and that was obviously no problems either. I also installed Windows Office and confirmed that PowerPoint, Excel, and Word all worked flawlessly. There could be a point where some Omega Excel files could slow down the computer, but I personally don't work with anything like that, so I couldn't test it. I decided to do a live streaming test, and to my surprise, it was actually a really good experience. I had my webcam and mic going at 1080p with bitrate set to 10K, and the output came out with 0 dropped frames. I tried gaming at the same time, and even with the game at 1080p, the stream was flawless. So if you want to stream, you should be just fine if you're just doing, talking head stuff or lower end 1080p gaming. But if you are playing something like Wukong at max settings, you may run into some slight performance slowdowns. So while there were some hiccups along the road, most of the things I use my PC for were able to be completed, with some reservations. But what about my laptop? Well, I mostly use my laptop when I leave the house and want to do some writing at third place, like a coffee shop or a park. And that means bringing my Ally X and wireless keyboard into public and typing away on my Game Boy like a goober. Obviously, it worked out pretty well, but typing directly on the 7-inch screen is kind of a pain. It's great for games, but for typing, I did have to strain my eyes just a little bit. Could have brought a portable monitor to plug it into, but at that point, I'm basically unpacking my entire desktop experience in the corner of Starbucks, so a little eye strain is enough. And gaming on the go was obviously a great experience. It's literally what the device was made for. So did I make it the entire 30 days? Well, at day 27, everything was going smooth. I was cruising on my Ally X all day, every day. But then Path of Exile 2 Early Access released, and while the game does run fine on the Ally X, I really wanted to experience it on a desktop with a dedicated GPU, so I caved and played it on my PC. But other than that momentary relapse, yes, I was able to do everything I need for 30 days. And while I could have just pretended I didn't use a PC at all, I wanted to be honest with y'all and let you know that if you decide to go this route, you might also get the urge for more power and get tired of playing at 1080p, or the limits brought upon you might just be too much for you to bear. But having said all that, do I recommend you swap your gaming desktop and laptop out for an Ally X? Well, if you're content with playing games at 1080p or lower and don't require a lot of extra needs like, PCIe slots, 10 gig networking, and don't mind looking like a man-child during work meetings, then yeah, it could totally be a replacement for a lot of people. But if you're like me and you have complicated needs and require more power, well, it might be a little bit more of a difficult choice for you. But if you own a Steam Deck and you're wondering if you could replace your PC with that, check out this video I made 2 years ago where I did this exact same challenge for a week. Please like the video if you liked it, and comment a cat emoji down below so I know you made it this far into the video. My name's Jason. Thanks for watching.